22 seconds. That is how long Kash Patel sat completely frozen after Adam Schiff placed the transcript on the table. Not the transcript of today's hearing. A different transcript. One that had been sitting inside a classified archive for 11 months. One that Patel had stated publicly, repeatedly, definitively, did not exist. It existed. Schiff had it. And for 22 seconds, the FBI director sat at the witness table and said absolutely nothing. Here is exactly what happened. The hearing had been running for 2 hours. Republican members had used their time to praise Patel's leadership, his transparency agenda, his promises to rebuild public trust in the Bureau. Patel had handled every question with his characteristic efficiency. Short answers, precise language, nothing that could be used against him later. He had been in hearing rooms before. He knew how they worked. He knew how to run the clock. He checked his watch once. He leaned back slightly. That was the last comfortable moment he would have in that room. Because Adam Schiff had been sitting at the far end of the committee table for 2 full hours with a single manila folder in front of him, closed, untouched. He hadn't asked one question. He hadn't interrupted a single exchange. He had simply sat there, completely still, waiting for the moment when Patel was most committed to his version of events. Schiff is a former federal prosecutor. He spent years in courtrooms before politics. He knows that the most effective question is never the first one. It is the one that comes after the witness has already locked themselves into a position they cannot walk back. He had been listening for 2 hours specifically to find that position. He found it at 2:58 p.m. when Patel told Senator Cornyn, on the record under oath, that the Bureau had conducted a thorough and complete review of all materials related to the sealed federal trafficking case and had found no evidence of any undisclosed communications between FBI leadership and the White House during the relevant period. No evidence of any undisclosed communications. Patel said it clearly, confidently, the way someone says something they believe is safe. At 3:09 p.m., the chairman recognized Schiff. He opened the folder. "Director Patel," Schiff said, and his voice carried the flat precision of someone who has been waiting 2 hours for this exact moment. 11 minutes ago, you testified that the Bureau found no evidence of any undisclosed communications between FBI leadership and the White House during the relevant period. Is that still your testimony? Patel looked at him. It is. I want to show you something. Schiff produced the transcript. He set it on the desk in front of him without drama, the way someone places something they have been carrying for 11 months. This is a transcript of a recorded conversation. It was produced under congressional subpoena 14 days ago. It is dated March 11th of last year. The participants are identified as a senior FBI official and a White House liaison. The subject of the conversation is described in the header as case alignment, trafficking investigation. He looked up. Case alignment, trafficking investigation. March 11th. Director Patel, that date falls squarely within the relevant period you just described. Can you explain why this transcript exists if there were no undisclosed communications? 2 seconds of silence. Patel's lead attorney was on his feet immediately. Senator, my client has not had the opportunity to review any transcript introduced without prior. It was produced by your client's bureau, Schiff said. He didn't look at the attorney. He kept his eyes on Patel. Under congressional subpoena. 14 days ago. Your client's department produced this document. The attorney sat down. The room had gone completely still. The particular stillness that descends when everyone present understands that something irreversible has just happened. Patel's right hand moved to the edge of the table. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His senior aide, seated directly behind him, leaned forward and then caught herself and sat back. Director Patel, Schiff continued, I want to read you one passage from this transcript, just one. And then I want to ask you a question. He looked down at the page. The senior FBI official states, and I am quoting directly, the director has been briefed. He understands the timeline. We proceed as discussed. The White House liaison responds, confirmed. No documentation beyond this call. He set the transcript down. No documentation beyond this call. Director Patel, who is the senior FBI official referenced in this transcript. And what does proceed as discussed mean in the context of a conversation about a trafficking investigation? 22 seconds of silence. Every camera in the room repositioned. Every journalist stopped filing. 3 Republican members who had spent the morning defending Patel were now studying their own notes with extraordinary focus. Because 22 seconds of silence from an FBI director in response to a question about a transcript produced by his own bureau is not a pause. It is not a procedural question. It is not a memory issue. It is the sound of a version of events collapsing in real time. Patel finally spoke. His voice had changed. The practiced efficiency was still there, but something beneath it had shifted in a way that could not be unshifted. Senator, I am not in a position to authenticate or characterize a transcript I have not had the opportunity to review with counsel in an appropriate. Your bureau produced it, Schiff said, 14 days ago. In response to a congressional subpoena your bureau received, processed, and complied with. Are you telling this committee that you were not aware your bureau had produced this document? 4 seconds. I am not personally briefed on every document produced in response to every congressional subpoena. This one, Schiff said, describes a conversation in which a senior FBI official tells a White House liaison that the director has been briefed, that the Bureau will proceed as discussed, and that there will be no documentation beyond that call. He paused. Director Patel, 11 minutes ago, you testified there were no undisclosed communications. This transcript describes a call specifically designed to leave no documentation. Those two things cannot both be true. He looked directly at Patel. I want to give you the opportunity to correct your earlier testimony, right now, on the record. If what you told Senator Cornyn 11 minutes ago was not accurate, this is the moment to say so. 14 seconds of silence. Patel's lead attorney stood. Senator, at this time my client is going to reserve his right to respond to this line of questioning in writing after having the opportunity to review the document you have introduced with appropriate legal counsel. Schiff looked at the attorney for a moment. Then he looked back at Patel. You testified under oath 11 minutes ago. The document on this table was produced by your own bureau, and you are now reserving your right to respond in writing. He picked up the transcript, stacked it neatly, set it to his right. Director Patel, I am going to be direct with you. The American people have been waiting for transparency on this investigation for over 2 years. They were told there were no undisclosed communications. This transcript says otherwise. And your response. 22 seconds of silence followed by a request to respond in writing tells this committee everything it needs to know about what that transcript contains. He looked at the chairman. I am formally requesting that this committee subpoena the complete call log for the March 11th conversation, all related communications between FBI leadership and any White House official during the relevant period, and a full written explanation from Director Patel addressing the contradiction between his testimony today and the document his own bureau produced. The gavel came down. The hearing technically continued, but the room had already moved on, because 22 seconds of silence has a way of ending conversations even before the words do. No evidence of any undisclosed communications. A transcript describing a call designed to leave no documentation, and an FBI director who had nothing left to say. The document is in the congressional record. The testimony is in the congressional record. And the 22 seconds of silence that separated them is now the most important gap in Washington. But here is what the clip doesn't show. What happened in the 40 minutes after the gavel fell? Patel's legal team requested an immediate recess. They huddled in a hallway outside the chamber for 11 minutes. 3 separate calls were placed. A 4th was received. When Patel returned to the witness table for the remaining questions, his senior attorney sat closer than before. Every answer that followed was shorter, more careful, more qualified. By the time the session ended, Schiff's office had already filed the subpoena request, the complete call log, all related communications, a written explanation of the contradiction between the testimony and the transcript.